Good evening. It's 5:01. I'm calling the regular board meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District of August 20th, 2021 to order. And may I please have a roll call?
Yes, absolutely. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Present.
Meigs,
Yes, here.
Zilla,
No, you did. You put yourself on mute. You were off. Now you're okay.
I'll come back. Kelly,
Here, I can see Mary's here, and she indicated with her head that she was here. So let's mark her present. I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Here.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry.
Well, now that you're here, let's all leave. I'm going to adjourn to closed session. We have a different meeting ID for that, so I'm now going to adjourn to closed session. Okay, it's 5:35. I'm reconvening the regular board meeting of October 20th, 2021 for the Ross Valley Sanitary District to order, and there is nothing to report from closed session, so I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda.
I move approval.
My second?
Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes, please.
Gaffney,
Present.
No.
it's a vote, Director Gaffney, aye or nay.
Can you hear me?
Approval of the agenda, yes or no?
I approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Great. Director Meigs,
What? Oh, yes, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is.
The agenda, approving the agenda. She approved.
great. Zilla,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes, I approve the agenda. So I'm going to move for open time for a public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Directors on matters within the district's jurisdiction, but not on the posted agenda, may do so. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The board may not take action or discuss items on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements or questions by a member of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up or elect to have the matter placed on an agenda in a future meeting. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the report outs. The Ad Hoc Human Resources Committee met. Who would like to take that? Mary?
Sure, I'll say a few words about it. We just reviewed item number 13 on our large agenda tonight. Changes to the, I want to say personnel policy manual. I don't know if that is the official. Administrative and personnel policy book. It's getting so big, it's a book. And it mostly, most of the changes were necessary due to changes in California law, tracking the Family Medical Leave Act at the federal level, and the staff met and conferred with the represented employees, et cetera. We'll go over that agenda item here, but anyway, we got an in-depth report on it from Steve and Felicia and found everything to be in order. Michael, do you have anything to add?
It's just the amount of work that's happened on human resources since I've been here is astounding. And so thank you very much, Felicia and crew, for everything you guys have done to, make it so that everybody understands what the policies are and what are the ramifications of doing them and not doing them. It makes it very clear to be an employee here, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Finance Committee, Tom, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I will. The Finance Committee, Doug and I met yesterday, and basically we just reviewed the financial report of the ongoing finances of the district. We managed to go into some detail on a lot of items, but the report is that we're in very good, excellent financial condition. And we had some ideas to think about, but everything seems fine. We went over the check register as well with lots of detail. Doug, did you want to add anything?
We talked about the temps. We have a couple of temps that we're paying, and that's working out. Some may become full-time, so we're asking about that. Yeah, make that be about it. And well, I'm sorry, hold on a second, Pam. I wanted to just add that the OPEB liabilities seem to be paying off a little faster than we hoped. We originally hoped for 6 years. It looks like it might be 5 because we had some really great returns last year. Pam, go right ahead.
This may be the wrong time, but I'm kind of lost track of our bonds and how many bonds we have and how much we have. And I mean, interest rates are super low. Is there any discussion about putting those bonds into one big bond and then lower the interest rate?
Felicia, can we put that in a future agenda item?
Yes, thank you, President Kelly. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on that, Pam?
Remember
Okay.
now, bonds are protected from call for 10 years. And the earliest one was issued in 2013. So that could come up for a refinancing in 2023.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Ad hoc facilities subcommittee. Did you meet?
Well, Tom and I went on the tour together, so technically we saw everything that everybody else saw. So excited to be working on the new building, hopefully shortly in the future.
So for the record, each of the 5 directors went on a tour of the upstairs of 1111 Anderson Drive, Andersen, and looked at how the offices will be changed. Some of them will be changed, some of them will remain the same. We did not take that tour with a quorum. I took mine with Pam, I think. And I don't know who else went, but there was never a quorum of directors at that tour. Okay, there's still no lease. I know that. It's being worked on, and I'm delighted.
Doug?
Yes.
Did we get a cost or a rough estimate cost of all these changes we're going to do?
I haven't seen that in writing, so I'd like to see that in writing.
Well, we're going to take bids.
Yeah.
So then we'll get the cost. Is that right, Felicia? Aren't we going to take in Steve?
Yes, that's right. We have a set of plans in what they call plan check comment with the city of San Rafael. So our architect is working with the building department there, and once we get that finalized, that permit is ready to issue, we will be going out to bid and presenting those results back to the full board.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Central Marin Sand. Michael or me? Who do you want?
Sure. I can start and then you can add in. Big issue these days is recycled water. And one of the things we did was we agreed for a contract with Carollo Engineers to tell us what is it going to take, assuming we get to tertiary cleaning. Right now, we're at secondary cleaning, which means recycled water is only of use, to contractors, or we can use it in the district to water down when we were doing work at Larkspur Landing, to use it for dust control, and we do use it there. I don't know the number. I didn't see it this month for how much recycled water we use, but we're using huge amounts of recycled water to clean our pipes, and we can use it for that. We don't have the tertiary cleaning like Las Colinas does with their purple pipes, but we are certainly looking at that in a big way. Actually, Kennedy Jenks is doing that evaluation of what it's going to take. And we added direct potable reuse evaluation. And we signed an agreement with Carollo Engineers to say, what is it going to take to do that level of cleaning of our outflow and actually pump it directly back into MMWD pipes. And so we're working on that on two fronts. Those are, a couple of years, 2-3 years out, regardless of how we do it. So it's a good thing that we're getting work on that now. As we've talked about in the past, one of our digesters ripped, and so they had to take that off and pump all the gas out of it and actually drain the tank and clean it completely out. And I know Doug went on a tour of that, as did I, and it was pretty incredible. It looks like the inside of a Roman Colosseum when you're down at the base of it. It's stunningly huge. And they got a new cover shipped out and installed, and that sounds lovely, but there was a little bit of problem with how the cover fit. It was done to specifications, and it's a long story, but there's 2 or 3 possibilities that are going to happen. Either they're going to ship us out yet another cover that will be the right size, or they're going to change the cabling system on the new cover, which might also happen. But at this point, the people who Evoqua, who are in charge of that, and also responsible for any delays. So our people are putting together what it's costing us, and not all the information is in yet about exactly what's going to happen, but something is going to happen, and it's happening soon as we go. You want to talk about the OPEB?
Yeah, we talked about the OPEB, the unfunded liability portion of OPEB. So it's, I think, 1.6, if I remember correctly. And the, what number was that? 8. The grand jury had suggested to all agencies to find ways to fund these. Of course, we are ahead of the game on that. So the total obligation is $4,500,000 with a funded position of 2.85. Leaving unfunded of 1.65. We are putting money in, and we have a plan for that to be paid off in, where are we there? 38, is that right?
That sounds not right.
Yeah, so we're not as, I'd say both on pension and OPEB, CMSA is not in as good a shape as Rvsd. I think we got a handle on it a lot earlier, and so, but we're working on it, so we understand that. We had a draft memorandum with a company called Beyond the Dome. Beyond the Dome is a company that wishes to do a test or a series of tests. It manages biosolids and biosolids management technology. So basically, they did some stuff with Orange County, I think it was, who was delighted with their work. We only have a memorandum of understanding regarding insurance, and they would be there on hand to manage our biosolid fluids and to learn more about how CMSA uses them. Nothing's been decided as to moving forward with them. It's just a memorandum of understanding. And I think that was it. We had
I have a couple of questions. One, is the new digester dome going online?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Either any way they're going to go forward, they're going to have to deflate it again.
Oh,
So they
okay.
didn't want it to have the biogas in it. But really, the two possibilities are build one that's the right size for the cables, or change the cables to fit this cover that came in. Those are the two possibilities, and really, whichever one happens the fastest is the one that we'd like, I believe, the one that they happening.
Let me clarify for those who aren't aware. The new yellow cover came in, and it's, I said to Jason by email or text yesterday, I think, or the day before, it's significantly smaller. I took a picture of that from my road. You know, my office is on Pelican, which is right across the highway. And we talked about it being slightly smaller. It looks pretty significantly smaller. The chains, therefore, that go all the way around it are loose. So of course that would never work. I mean, in a rainstorm, they'd be banging around each other, and we'd have a damaged new cover. So either they've got to tighten the chains, or they've got to get a new cover. The question is, does it matter that it's significantly smaller? Because most of the work goes on the secondary level. There's a secondary level that goes up. Okay, so I'm not sure that it matters, but Jason's looking into that. And so, like Michael said, either they're going to adjust the chains by making them smaller, or they're going to replace the cover, neither of which we're enjoying.
10 years ago, when they put those covers in, there was apparently a lot of confusion and non-documentation by the people who did the installing about what was happening. One of the covers back then ripped way back when. And when they put it in, somehow that cover got bigger. And so the chains, the cable system that held it in also got bigger at that time. The new cover that was put in a week ago was actually built to the original specifications. So originally it was a little bit smaller, and the cables were made larger after they replaced the one. Anyway, they're working on it, and it's a work in progress, and we'll report next month as we did.
Yeah, we actually had an agenda item to terminate the emergency work, and we reversed that and continued the emergency work. So it was just an unfortunate result.
Okay.
Pam,
I had another comment, and that is that biosolids, I think we're facing a restriction on biosolids. There's, the legislature's thinking of declaring them like a toxic waste, which they're not, but they're very expensive for the treatment process. And so some innovative ideas for biosolids is extremely important. It's a lot of money.
And it wouldn't cost us anything with Beyond the Dome. We'd be doing them a favor, and we asked Jason to find out if their technology works, how could we benefit from it, and maybe we can take advantage of what they build on our site. So the board is aware of that, and hopefully it'll be able to help us.
Yeah, that's the plan. Okay. Thank you. Pam, North Bay Watershed, please.
I'm sorry, Director Kelly, may I make a point of information and ask a question of the CMSA committee?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So Director Borstein, you mentioned recycled water use. The district is actually using almost 100% of its water for cleaning purposes using recycled water. Right. And that's the monthly metrics report. So I just wanted to point that out because Steve Moore, our general manager, would be remiss if I did not.
Thank you. And I knew the number was back there. I didn't know it off the top of my head, and I didn't want to say a number that I thought was, anyway.
Yeah, 100%, 88,301 gallons last month. And then as a question for the CMSA committee, with regards to the pension obligation bonds that I believe CMSA is either considering or recently approved, I was wondering if there was any discussion about the, what is it called, the coverage fee, the 25% coverage fee on their debt service payments. Tom, you know what I'm referring to with regards to CMSA debt. And I was wondering if the pension obligation bonds would also carry a 25% coverage fee to Rvsd. Do either of you happen to know the answer to that question?
I know the answer to that. The coverage is like we have our bonds, I think 20% coverage factor. And so CMSA agreed to a 25% debt service coverage factor. And and we fund it.
Dear Mac.
And the money is used to, it makes the coverage, and then it's used for capital purposes. And so it's
Right.
entirely different.
There's someone listed as caller number 2, and they are live. If there is the opportunity and you'd like to make a comment, could you please wait until after Director Gaffney is finished speaking, please?
Anyway, there's no coverage on any other thing except the debt service.
Right, but so there is an additional then 25%
It's just on the debt.
on the debt service, even for the pension obligation bonds.
The pension obligation bonds weren't going to have it. They were not going to have it because they're actually not for capital.
That's a great, perfect answer. Thank you so very much, Director.
Do we have public comment? Please go ahead. Do you have any public comment on that?
Caller number 2. I know that you don't know that you're caller number 2, but if you're not muted and you have public comment for this item, feel free to speak now. And otherwise, it may be wise to mute your phone until you do have public comment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Pam for North Bay Watershed, please.
Yeah. Just quickly, Julie, a lot of people don't know how to mute their phone. Because I'm one of them. You might give them a little instruction. They did not have a meeting. There was a San Francisco Bay Estuary big thing, so no meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know if Steve's on one of those 2 calls. We have caller 1 and caller 2, or if Felicia.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead. Verbal report by the general manager, please.
Okay, we can do that. Sorry I'm not on camera. I will be in a few minutes. But meanwhile, I've got 4 things I wanted to touch on. First is good news about the Rvsd website. We're getting a whole new refresh. Our staff person, Courtney Buell's been the lead on this, working with Lawrence of NV5. And on Monday, October 25th at 8 a.m., our new website will be launched. I'm not sure what that noise is. At any rate, that's good news. So I encourage you to look at the website on Monday and give us your feedback. We've done a beta run of it, and it's looking great. A real nice polish to it. Felicia can attest to that.
Good.
Second, I'd like to report that indeed we did complete the Infrastructure Asset Management Plan update, also known as IAMP. The board would recall that that plan was required by the 2013 cease and desist order that we would develop this IAMP. We voluntarily decided to update it here about 8 years later for the 2021 update. And at the end of September, we posted the complete report on its own web page on the Rvsd website. So you get there via Open Government, and it's then got its own page, and all the sections of the IAMP, including the gravity sewer pipe assessments, the manhole assessments, lift station. We did a creek crossing risk assessment, and it's all in that web page. And we transmitted that information to the Regional Water Quality Control Board at the end of September, and so they now have that in their hands. And the strategy here is to demonstrate to them a risk-based approach so that we have a strong basis for rescinding the cease and desist order and really sunsetting that period of regulatory oversight. So I think we're well on our way. That's a good milestone. I encourage you to take a look at that. The third thing I wanted to report was we made another contribution to the Bay Area One Water Network. That's organized by, it's actually an academic-based effort out of Berkeley and Stanford, as well as University of New Mexico, and Colorado School of Mines. The effort centers on sustainable water supply in the Bay Area as augmented through a diversity of sources, including water reuse, stormwater capture, enhanced conservation, and desalination where appropriate. And so we were part of this consortium of water and wastewater utilities that supported this effort a couple of years ago. And now we're doing another $5,000 contribution to further a Bay Area focused effort on maximizing conservation and exploring sustainable desalination, which really focuses more on brackish groundwater than bay water or seawater. So I just want to let you know that we're continuing to be a part of that consortium, which is academically based and has a lot of positive influence on bringing creative thoughts together from various perspectives. And I think that's it. I wanted to mention the 1111 Anderson. Oh, I got two more things. The 1111 Anderson tours went really well. We did have 4 out of the 5 board members get a chance to see the facility. We also hosted tours for every staff member so that all of the field staff and office staff have had a chance to look at the facilities and understand what's proposed. And we continue to encourage input and feedback, and it's going well. So we wanted to let you know that we accomplished that milestone. And then the last thing I'd like to report on is the Rvsd Culture Plan. It's known as the Rvsd Way. And you've probably heard a little bit of briefing on this. We hired a company called Culture Wise and had a kickoff meeting with all staff in September to establish this approach to really, it's part of the leadership initiative in the business plan, where we want to cultivate leadership skills, not just in our supervisors and managers, but in all staff, and really make leaders out of all of us as members of a public agency. So the culture plan focuses on behaviors, and we selected 25 behaviors, which we call fundamentals. And each week we have a fundamental of the week, and so far we've done 4. And we talk about it in all of our meetings. We kick things off with a weekly insight, and we have an app on our phones, and we share what's known as kudos, where we support each other and thank fellow staff for jobs well done or coming through for each other. And it's very positive messaging that goes on every day now for the last month, and I think generally staff are very happy about it. And the 4 fundamentals we've covered so far are: number 1, be accountable in our behaviors; number 2, take ownership; number 3, find the solution, not the blame; and that's blameless problem solving as a behavior. And this week's behavior of the week is honor commitments. When we say honor commitments, we do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it, or otherwise let people know we're not going to be able to. So what we focus on is we don't have to fulfill every commitment, but we need to honor them by making sure we don't leave people, at a disadvantaged position because we forgot to do something. We give them the heads up, and that's honoring a commitment in case we can't meet the commitment. That was the theme of this week. Next week, we're going to talk about doing the right thing and so forth for 25 weeks. And then after I'm done leading that, I'm going to hand it off to other staff to do the cycle all over again. And this is our culture plan for Rvsd. We call it the Rvsd Way. And we have these little booklets that we'll give to the board members when we can meet in person one of these days. So thanks. That's it for my GM report, and I'll hand it back over to President Kelly.
Thank you very much, Steve. Before you go, before you put yourself back on mute, I think he just left by mistake. I want to point out that he showed me that pamphlet, and I asked Julia to put a couple aside for me at the front desk. I'd urge any other board members who are interested in seeing that to go ask Julia to put some aside and pick them up. It fits in your wallet. It's kind of a fold out. And number 25 is something to the effect of enjoy yourself at work. And so, yeah, there you go. What's number 25, Felicia? Can you read it?
Yes, if I can unmute myself. It is have fun. Keep things fun. Keep things fun. While our passion for excellence is real, remember that the world has bigger problems than the daily challenges that make up our work. Stuff happens. Keep perspective. Don't take things personally or take yourself too seriously. Laugh every day.
There you go. I think it's excellent. I was really pleased with it. I was pleased to see it was being done. Okay, thank you very much. And now verbal reports. And by the way, any public comment on any of that?
I will unmute caller 2 and see if they have input.
Do you have anything on that caller 2? Okay, seeing none. Verbal reports by board members and requests for future agenda items. Michael, you're unmuted, so do you have anything?
Good for right now.
Pamela, Mary, Tom. The only thing I have is, I met with Steve, and we're really hoping to get EPA released soon on Larkspur Landing. He's put together a ginormous PDF for them that incorporates every single solitary thing in one big, huge PDF. And we're hoping to get a final approval very soon. Okay, consent calendar. Matters listed under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. The consent calendar may include resolutions, therefore the motion, second, and vote will also be applicable to the resolutions and recorded accordingly. There'll be no separate discussions of these items unless requested by a board member or member of the public prior to the board voting on it. Does anybody on the board wish to pull anything on the consent calendar first?
I have a question for you, Doug, on the minutes. Is this the right?
Sure.
I want to know, I know you made the comment in that meeting with the Larkspur Landing thing. You said, like, if we had a survey and they wanted a dog park, you would go along with it. And I didn't see that in the minutes. So I wanted to know if you wanted that in the minutes. I want it in the minutes.
Well, I wouldn't mind amending that. I think what I said was I wanted to get full input.
There's
I wanted
some.
Okay, we have a little crosstalk. Okay, I wanted to make sure that the public knew that there were no predetermined decisions whatsoever, and that if the public wanted something that was different and that was clear to the board, that we should do what the public wants. There was some discussion about that. So Julie, if you could amend that to put in something along the lines that, I wanted to make it very clear that this board had not made any decisions in advance whatsoever, that we're putting this in front of the public and we're going to get feedback from the public, and we hope to have many people involved in that. Seeing that change, is there anybody else on the board who wishes to pull anything? Is there any member of the public that has any comment on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
Second?
Second? Second from Mary. Thank you, Mary. May I have a roll call, please, Julia?
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes, please.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Meigs,
Yes.
Villa,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 12, discussion and direction of the draft community survey for potential disposition of property at 2000 Larkspur Landing, which we have made no decisions on. I'm going to ask Steve Moore for a staff report.
Thank you, President Kelly, board members. Thanks for your patience there. I made it back from my trip to the high school because Tamalpais Hawks had to win the championship of Marin County And girls water polo. I just thought I'd make that point.
Do you know anybody who's on that team, sir?
Oh yeah, well, the seniors were honored today, so we took care of that. But yeah, my daughter Mariel Moore is on the team, so we're gonna be MCAL champs. Anyway, so sorry about that. Thanks for the opportunity to give you an update on the survey. As part, and I will be handing this over to Lynette Diaz, who's joined us here to do an overview of the survey. But I'll just say that this is one of the first steps in our communications plan for the disposition of the Larkspur Landing property upon approval of EPA of the PCB's cleanup. And as the staff report indicates, we were really close to satisfying all of the report requirements for the EPA. A lot of cross-referencing and clarity that they're looking for within the report and the documentation. But there's really no question about that the remediation that we conducted meets the requirements for unrestricted use. And it's just a matter of getting all of the paperwork lined up in a way that they're satisfied with. So with that in mind, we've felt that, the project team felt it was appropriate, as well as board members, to continue the process of gathering input from the community on the disposition of the Larkspur Landing property. And so the first step is to create a survey and then analyze the results of the survey of ratepayers and interested public to give the board an idea of, let's just say, sentiment or preferences of our ratepayers on choices that you have in the property's disposition. And those choices have been vetted fairly thoroughly in a recent meeting on October 13th, as well as 3 previous informational presentations about the opportunities and constraints associated with the disposition of the 2000 Larkspur Landing Circle property, former treatment plant. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Lynette Diaz, who's on our real estate consulting team and has very extensive experience in community engagement in public property disposition. So with that, I'd like to introduce Lynette Diaz of Urban Planning Partners. Thank you.
Great, I think I'm there. Oh, I just did that again.
Yes.
Okay, can everybody see my screen with the slide? Okay, great, thank you so much. It's really nice to be before all you again this evening. And I think I'm going to keep my presentation pretty brief. In the packet, there was a draft survey that hopefully each of you have had time to review. If not, I can pull that up via the packet and we can go through it. As you'll recall from just last week, we briefly went over where we were in the timeline, and we are still waiting for the letter from EPA so we can move into the surplus land process. In anticipation of that, which we hope we'll get very soon, we want to get the survey ready to go and have our plan to circulate it. So we wanted to bring that before you tonight and see if you had any comments or suggestions, requests. I just wanted to take a minute to really to visit the outcomes of each time we do a community engagement element. We always take a step back and say, what do we want to achieve from this? Not what specific input do we like. We want to know it's a dog park or that, but more from a process standpoint. And so on that, number one is we want to find out who's interested and wants to be engaged, which is not on this slide, but is one of the questions of getting contact information for folks. And then we want to receive input from ratepayers related to preferences of ongoing revenue or one-time revenue source. And then we also want to get input from stakeholders related to the existing land use approvals and potential alternative land uses that aren't part of the proposal, current approval, sorry. And, you know, the dedicated open space as well as the Rvsd headquarters are part of the approved. We know that's not happening there. So we have some questions around that. So with that, I think unless it's the pleasure of the board to go through each survey question, I will just be available for questions and discussion.
I'm guessing Doug is speaking and doesn't realize he's on mute.
I was speaking and not realizing I was on mute. Thank you, Mary. Andrea, did you have anything you wanted to add since you're an expert in this type of land use?
Not particularly. I mean, I think it's fair to gain some insight from the community. I think, as the board knows, we've talked about the Surplus Land Act, which you know, has some limitations on the process for disposing of property. So it remains to be seen, you know, how exactly this type of input weighs in substantively on the process. But I don't see a downside to doing it. And I know that this board is very interested in transparency and making sure the public knows, the ratepayers know what they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the board. Mary? Let's start with you.
Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. I like that we are gathering opinions across the spectrum, and that we have, yeah, we give respondents an opportunity to weigh in about the revenue that will be created, and then options about how it might be used, and then give them the opportunity to suggest other answers to both of those questions. I hope we get a great response rate. I know for a fact that we only got 40-some protests, not that getting response to survey is the same necessarily as a protest to our rates, but I hope that NV5 or whomever helps us engage with the community to get a lot of responses to this. But
Yeah,
as I've
five of those complaints on the rate were Larkspur.
right. But as I've said before, I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to our ratepayers to do something that economically makes sense. And given how much money we have put into this property, both through settling lawsuits about it previously and cleaning it up, it only makes sense to do something that generates revenue. I also think we owe it to the community to have it be a very useful use of the property. And I also think that Larkspur decides what is done in the city of Larkspur. We are selling an asset. So I think if we decide that we are going to control the ultimate use of it and make that decision, then we are taking something away from the city of Larkspur's authority on that point. And I don't think that would go over very well. And it might not even be allowed. As Michael used to say, we're not a land use entity. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pam?
Well, just a reminder, we own the land. Larkspur don't own it, we own it. So I want to bring that back to the table. So it's a very short, simple survey. I don't think it has to be the governing paper for our decision, but I think it's very helpful. And I agree that we need to really figure out a way to get all these towns and all our constituents somehow involved. The only thing I have on page 4 is when you talk about you have these three questions on lease or sale, long-term lease or sale. And then you said mix of both. I also want a one-time property sale as well as a long-term lease. There's also other options that I'm wondering if we should put in a question, like we could sell part of the land, or we could lease part of the land. We could actually expand the open space, which I think people will be interested. And then also, how much information are you going to put out when you send this? I don't know what you're going to tell the public as a opening statement. That's not clear to me. So those are a couple of things. And if you don't have a question on number 4 about not do anything or not do anything right away or something of that nature, it changes the mean. So I would suggest we have a question there that says, should we just leave the land the way it is for now? Maybe deal with it in a couple of years. I don't know. When you put it in as a write-in, it does not follow into the mean. So that's all, folks.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
I have some specific comments on the submittal so far, and I'd kind of like to go through them. On page 1, draft introduction, the first paragraph, it's approximately 10 M. And I'd like to put 10 million. M is often 1,000, so 10 million. And then on page 4, I like the fact that it's short. I think we'll probably get more responses since it's brief. But what I would like to say up at the top there is the district analyzes blah, 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 rate the importance of the following scenarios. And then I would like to add a line right there. Revenues from the sale or long-term lease would support district operations, fund capital repairs, and reimburse costs for the EPA required cleanup. Because it seems to me that's the key on this thing, is that we have a tremendous asset here. Some people want to have it for open space, and I think we probably have an element of open space in here, but it's a tremendous asset. And I'm taking that very seriously, that we have a duty, and in fact, it's in our enabling legislation that we have to use district assets for the benefit of employees. It's right in our, official bylaws, so to speak. Not our own, but the state's Sanitary District Act bylaws. So, and then what we could do is eliminate to support district operations on those two things, but add the line of how the money could be up top. And I think that's the only comments I have. But
Okay.
I think the fact that it's short and to the point will help us get a lot more responses.
Doug, I'd like to add in for a minute. What Tom said was it would reimburse us for expenses, on the EPA cleanup, but really, it isn't like we took out a loan to do that. So I would say then it's just going to be a net positive on our on our income or whatever, on our financial position going forward. So the result is going to be, it's going to reduce the rates we might have to raise otherwise over the course of time, or reduce the likelihood that we have to go out for more bonds. I mean, it's just remarkable to me that the same people who worry so much about our rates going up might say, let's leave it as a dog park, because that's the path to rates going.
Yeah. We did borrow to improve this property. We borrowed about $10 million.
Oh, okay. That's true.
Yeah.
I see. So that would truly be a reimbursement. We're going to net more though, right?
We're probably going to have to pay off those bonds because we issue tax exempt bonds. And if it goes to a public property, a private property, then we have to refund those bonds. And we've made provision for that in our documents.
Yeah. Yeah. And those bonds will probably be fully paid off, but we can't pay those bonds off before 2022 anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I had another question. Should we do anything prior to Larkspur approving their general fund? Because the way it's zoned now, it's in a use that we don't really need because of the parcel for our office building, which we don't need.
That's right. Right. I think there could be some tweaks to that when they do their general plan update, and the open space can be moved closer to the current open space park that they have there, and the property set aside on that zoning that's been approved for Ross Valley's headquarters could be put to other use. I think that Larkspur is interested in working with Ross Valley to amend that.
Yeah, but my question is, can we proceed prior to, or should we proceed prior to the approval of the Larkspur Landing general plan?
Well, I think, in my opinion, we can, Tom, because this is and I like this. I want Michael to speak first, but
we can do this.
This is an open-ended document, so I don't think it's, people aren't going to have.
I wasn't talking about the survey. I was talking about some action.
Well, we have plenty of time for some action, or no action.
It might be better to wait for Larkspur Landing's approval for the.
Daphne, we did show you that timeline earlier in the presentation, which showed when the survey is, and then the timing potentially of the Surplus Land Act process, and it's probably about 4 months after EPA sign off, as we discussed previously. So that may not be that may be congruent with your comment. That is, the process is not going to be kicked off immediately right now. And the Larkspur general plan process is underway. So there may be synergies in those timelines.
Thank you. Michael?
Lynette, how is this survey going to be distributed to the public? Online, on paper, both?
It will be a mixture of both. And we still are gathering how, where all we will do it, but it will also be announced in the press release that goes out relative to the receipt of the letter of no further action. So we're working hard to, put it out as widely as we can. I think all of you have alluded to this, and I think we all know it's not easy to get people to fill out surveys like this, particularly, I think, so we will have some work to do to help get it out there and get people say, hey, this really matters. So as you talk to your constituents, once you're out there and know it, please encourage people, if you guys have specific ideas for us beyond kind of, the more traditional, but we'll send it to all the cities. And Ross Garrick is on the line. He may be able to speak a little bit more detailed to that.
One of the
But Michael, can I make one point?
Oh, please. Okay, Doug.
I was just going to say, Steve and I talked about our ads on YouTube and Marin IJ, which are ongoing. I would suggest Steve change those ads for a period of time to utilize that space that we're already paying for to highlight this survey. Go ahead, Michael.
When we send this survey out, it's a concern to me is who is answering it. And I know we ask questions here about your name and are you a district ratepayer? And that's important. But from that, I don't know that we have a way of verifying that that's who that is, because if the board, and I think most of us were on the board back then, when we were having a lot of constituency coming to discuss the agreement to settle the lawsuit with CMSA and San Quentin and all that, we had a much wider swath of constituency, not just Ross Valley, showing up and expressing concerns. And in this county, there are some organizations that could certainly ask people to fill this out. And I would wonder if there's a way that maybe we could have a place for address here, you know, that say we're not going to publish it, but as they came in, and you know, that we'd like to know, for me, is this a constituent or is it not? And if you had a name and an address, maybe that could help us to do that. I just remember there was a tremendous number of people from Corte Madera and from Mill Valley making comments, and we would always have to ask them, where are you from, so that we could know. You know, it's interesting to know what other people are thinking, but if they want to keep it as open space because Mill Valley wants a place to walk their dogs, that's an interesting thing to know. But anyway, other than that, you know, I liked it. It was simple, and I think as many ways as we can get it out there, just if we have a way of verifying, if that's possible.
I note, thanks, Director Borstein. I note that we do have a question number 7, and we could be clearer on how we phrase this. It says, if you'd like to be contacted via email, please provide your address. It should say email address. But also, you know, we could add 7A, 7B here, you know, and have email, or, you know, we could structure it in a way to put your email address and your mailing address for verification. You know, it's, anyway, we can talk, the project team will talk about that, and something that we wouldn't share.
Pam, you're shaking your head.
People, Doug, can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was asking.
Fairfax does a lot of surveys. There did one just recently for a skateboard park, and there is a professional way to do it. Maybe it's a monkey survey, I'm not quite sure. The thing is, if you start making people, I mean, I don't remember that, Michael, at all, that there was a huge amount of people. There was some, but I don't remember a large amount of people during that period. And what I'm trying to say is, if we start pushing back, you know how much stuff you get on your email? I understand, you know, I just do not give out my email to nothing hardly anymore because they never stop. And so I have to clear out 100 emails or more a day because of this kind of stuff. So I think, Lynette, this is, if this is up your alley and you've done all this, you should know about these things and how they can be done professionally with integrity. And I don't foresee a horde of people coming after the survey. I mean, Greg Norby did a survey and I think we got 300 people to respond. So anyway, maybe Lynette, you could give us some of your experience or something.
Yeah, we will be using something similar to SurveyMonkey. We also do another problem that we have outside of just regular citizens in the community that might want to push a certain item and get people, you know, what you guys were talking about. You can get robots responding as well. So we will put a CAPTCHA, those little annoying things that none of us like to do. But if you do that, that does avoid us getting robot responses. I do like the idea of putting the address in for verification. We'll need to talk about it. I mean, it's a tough situation. Essentially, anybody that can get the link to the survey, unless we send out like a passcode in the, well, we can't send it out in your bills because you guys do, but like in the newsletter or something. And so it's pretty tough to completely restrict to just your ratepayers, because if we're going to promote the survey, we're going to send a link out to it, and that link is going to be generally publicly accessible. But we do what we can, and I think the address is one more thing that we can do to do it. And we look at the data, we look where you can tell some patterns from where it comes from. I'm not our survey expert, but they do have ways to look at some of that. But for a survey like this, it would probably be pretty tough to pick out the people that weren't ratepayers that might live in Mill Valley or such, unless, but I think we look at it, how I would look at it is a little bit like a public hearing where somebody gets up and speaks and we ask, for their name and address for the record, or the name and the city where they live. So I kind of think that's on something like this, without getting really high security and compromising what responses we might get, is probably the best we can do in today's technology world.
I think there's a law too that you cannot demand them to give their name.
You cannot. No, it's a Supreme Court decision that anonymous speech is permitted in the United States of America. I don't recall the case, but Andrea, do you remember the case?
Not off the top of my head, but when people come to the meetings, we ask that they say who they are, but they can still make comments even if they refuse to do that. So we can
comments are constitutionally protected. Okay, but I still like putting the idea of the address in there, Lynette. I think that's a good idea. Please provide us with your name, won't be made public. Please provide us with your address, won't be made public. It's a shot. I like it. I like the survey. I think you did a good job. I think it's fairly open-ended. I agree with the changes. I want to make very clear that I'm not suggesting we turn this into a dog park. I agree with Mary's comments and sentiments. This district spent a lot of money on this property. And all I was saying at the beginning, and I've been saying all along, is I'd like the public to have an opportunity to tell us what they think. I completely agree with Michael's concern. Yeah, I don't want people from Novato telling us what to do for our district and for our ratepayers. It is challenging. You could check IP addresses, but even that, it just gets challenging. Let's see what the survey says, and let's take it from there. Hold on now, Michael, you wanted to say something?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, Pam, you wanted to speak again.
No, I'm sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay, fine. So I like it. I look forward to having it put out. Steve, do you think would it make sense to change the YouTube and IJ ads for a while?
We'll look into it.
Maybe not YouTube.
We'll look into it. We appreciate the suggestions, and the project team will look at our different pathways of outreach, maximize.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this issue? Can everybody unmute yourselves? Ross, can you? I know you're on, but could you just make sure I can see you unmute yourself? Yep, there you go. Caller 3, do you want to have any comment? I know you don't think you're caller 3, but somebody's caller 3.
Yep, they have them. Oh, okay. They have themselves muted. And
some people don't like public speaking. I hope I didn't irritate them. Okay. Well, all right. I'm going to close public comments, and I'm going to ask if we have any particular direction that we wish to give beyond that what we have. I like Tom's suggestions. I like Michael's suggestions. I like Pam's suggestion.
Really like my suggestion?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think a lot of people will go for it, but I don't think it hurts asking.
I think the getting prepared for this is really a lot more work than we're talking about. To do it correctly and do it timely. And I'm just wondering how, I know in Fairfax, we've been getting a lot of monkey surveys on different things happening in town and fire and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's the councils and these neighborhood, what are they called? Like, you know, neighborhood community service things. They're the direct contact a lot with their people. Maybe we need to do what we did in the past where we would go to a council meeting and say, this is going to happen and please participate. And they can put it on their town website because they come out with a monthly letter. So I'm just hoping for a lot more people. What do we have? How many constituents? Is it 14? Is it 14,000 households? Is that right? Yeah, I think it's 14,000. So
yeah, a lot more people, but households. The one thing I would say, Pam, and this is for you as well, Michael, if we put the addresses, which I agree with it, you can't ask people to disclose their name and you can't ask people to disclose your address, but you absolutely positively can put more weight on those surveys that came back that did answer those questions. You absolutely positively can. Yes, Julia.
I just wanted to make you aware, President Kelly, that a member of the public potentially has entered the conversation and is, I believe, trying to speak. It might be the same caller trying over and over.
I saw them come in, and if caller 4 would like to speak, you're absolutely welcome to.
This is James Holmes, Larkspur resident ratepayer. Can you hear me?
Yes, we certainly can. Please go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say on behalf of those few, but hopefully not insignificant, people who do not have access to a computer, I hope there will be some way that they can be heard and that they can request a survey or that they will receive it in some fashion. I'd also like to, and I agree with you, I think people should be requested to state their address so that you can consider the folks who are ratepayers versus those who are not. With regard to how to make the survey, I just remember hearing that town of Ross apparently did a survey which was restricted to Ross regarding the renaming of Drake Boulevard, and apparently they felt that they had just accessed Ross people. So I mean, there might be some mode to just access ratepayers if you wanted a ratepayer only sample. But in any event, I hope that folks will be able to get this in other ways than through the computer if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to see us do that as well. And if you would like to reach out to Julia sometime during the week, and we'll make sure we get one to you personally. But I understand your greater point is, yeah, but what about my next door neighbor? And I think that's very valid. So I hope Lynette has some sort of a plan for that. Do you?
That was a good point.
We will definitely. We always make hard copies available. We'll distribute them different places. They'll definitely be available at the district office. And we will need to talk with staff as to where else. I would suggest we could also have them available at the local cities that we're participating in that are within your service area as well.
Thank you. And I would also just take this opportunity, Mr. Holmes, to say you're always welcome to call any of the board members that you wish to and talk about whatever you wish to anytime. We're always there.
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to say how helpful Julia has been on a prior occasion. Thanks.
Oh, good. Much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Does there any more public comment? Any more comments from the directors on direction?
Well, I'm beginning to worry a little bit about accessing people who don't have computers, elderly, whatever, and other people that are just not really connected with their township. So I would like to hear some kind of plan. It doesn't sound like it's solid. Of course, we're not going to do it tomorrow. I know we've got time on what exactly, how do we get the most response? There's got to be some data out there, Lynette, on how do you get the best response? Do you send everybody a mailer? Do you, or give them, I know you said there was more than one option, but I'm not sure what you're doing, really. or what you're planning on how you're going to get the public to
We don't, I'm sorry, I've been out the last few weeks, so I'm a little bit, and it wasn't on vacation, so I'm not as quick as I would be otherwise on some of this stuff. And Ross, can you remind me if we have detailed that? I don't think we have yet, but I'm going to just be honest and say I can't remember at the moment.
I think
Okay.
this is Ross. I think some of you have met me. I'm also a sub-consultant on the team. We have everything kind of approach to this, but we haven't completely refined it yet. So we could follow up with a supplemental plan for you, Director Meggs, just to let you know what we're going to be doing, not only online, but potentially advertisements and things of that nature. But at this time, we thought Nextdoor would be a very good option because it does get people right into your service areas. But then in addition to that, we need to reach those people in the community, whether it's the senior housing areas, the cities, city halls, town halls. So it's all of the above is what we want to go for, and we can detail that in a supplemental memo.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ross. I apologize, I wasn't more on that.
Well, I'll do some research on my own to see what is the best way to get people to do surveys. And I know a couple people here in town that.
Yeah, and I mean, please don't take that as we don't have the experience. I just didn't know what specifically we had decided on this project. There's lots of best practices. There's no one way that, works across the board to get the most survey responses. There's not a one size fits all. And that's actually something our firm is really committed to, is you really do have to customize it to the communities that you're working in. This is, in this situation where you guys don't send bills out regularly, but you do send a letter. So we are thinking that's how we'll get the mailing part of it out. And so we've talked about a lot of different things. So we will go about this comprehensively. I will assure you that. And we are happy to provide back the details. And if you do come up with any suggestions, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do our work for us. We are very experienced in this and do a lot of it, as does Ross. And so we will definitely get the word out. We're very committed to having equitable participation, and so it won't just be digital. Lots of different opportunities.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lynette and Ross. I appreciate your comments and your hard work. Okay, I'm going to move on to consideration of adopting the updated Ross Valley Sanitary District Administration and Personnel Policy Book. And is that Steve or is that Felicia?
Yeah, thank you, Director Kelly. Yes, I will ask Felicia Newhouse, Assistant General Manager and our HR person here at the district, to give the overview of this process and recommendation. Felicia.
Great, thank you, General Manager Moore and Director, Board of Directors. So this item, as has been reported out by the HR committee, was reviewed quite in depth by them, and I'll just make a few highlights for the benefit of the full board here. The policy book, administrative policy book, personnel and policy book. So what are we calling this thing again? Oh, administrative and personnel policy book, right? Of course. Is a document that was last presented to the board in October of 2018, and several new employment laws have come into effect, most notably in January of this year with California Family Rights Act that had to be incorporated into our policy book. And then, of course, over time, the district board of directors has adopted a few individual policies that we wanted to incorporate into this larger document. And as well as just making several clarifying language edits and additional sort of cleanup language. So the process is subject to the district's meet and confer process with the represented unit, bargaining unit. We did provide them notice, met with them on 5 separate occasions. I'd like to say we were in complete agreement about every change to the policy book. That was not the case in the end, although we did come to agreement on several items that they requested a modification of a few different policies. And those remaining policies that we did not agree upon, we agreed to disagree, and they will have an opportunity to make future suggestions in the next policy book iteration or the next MOU contract. So the new policies that I want to bring to the full board's attention is policy 106, which is the whistleblower protection. That is protection for employees who not only might report a violation of a law, but also protects employees who could be perceived as being whistleblowers. The other 2 new ones, like I said, the board of directors adopted previously a telecommuting policy, which was kind of an outcropping of the COVID environment last year. That was previously adopted by the board, but is being closed in this book, as well as the employee award recognition was also adopted by the board last year, in fact, March of 2020. So with that, I think, yeah, the major legislative change would be the California Family Rights Act, which went into effect in January. And otherwise, the red lines I think that you will see in the book are mostly, like I said, clarifying language and the new whole policies found in the book. Steve, did I cover everything that you and I discussed earlier and that presented to the HR committee, or have I forgotten anything? Like to add anything?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the key was that we implemented a fair process, in terms of having 5 meetings. We actually had a joint labor management committee meeting to try to get to some form of agreement on some of the changes. And as we discussed at the HR committee, I think some of the staff in the represented part of our organization weren't used to the pace of revisiting these type of policies. Before Felicia led the establishment of the personnel policy book in October 2018, that's 3 years ago. Prior to that, the last policy book on personnel policies, other than the MOU, was over a decade before that. So we had to bring along folks' comfort level with the idea of revisiting the policy book within 2 years or 3 years. We started this effort at the beginning of this year, consistent with our business plan proposal, but it slowed down a bit just to get folks the comfort level that they were being heard and that there was an open, transparent process. So I thank Felicia for her diligence in making that process available, but we do believe that process came to a conclusion and it was appropriate to bring these changes to the board. Also, as Felicia, you pointed out at the committee meeting, there is kind of a time element to this. We can't go on and on forever because these state laws were enacted and we really need to have our procedures and policies consistent with those recently enacted state laws. So, we also felt some time element of needing to move forward so that we're consistent. And the whistleblower protections might be a good example of that. We really should have that within our policy manual. So that's why we're bringing this proposal to you today. Thanks, Felicia, for all of that work and the presentation.
Great, thank you. And we're, of course, available to answer any questions.
Michael?
No, I'm just very pleased with how the district has worked with the represented employees and coming to this. And I know some of it is still a work in progress with them, but this is a living document and it always should be. So it should always be available to be modified by what state law and federal law. And we should always listen to what the represented people say and include that in our discussions and thoughts. But my understanding is everybody's bought off on what we've got here. So very pleased.
Mary? Nothing?
We reviewed this in HR subcommittee. This is just
Right.
fine.
So I asked on you. Okay, Tom, you've got your light on?
Yeah, I can't believe the amount of work that went into this thing, and I was almost able to read all of it because it's huge. But one comment I had is on page 322 in the book. Time off to vote. Didn't the state pass a law that we're going to go to mailed ballots?
That's an interesting comment. Yes, and yet I think there will continue to be election, in-person election polling places.
Yeah. Well, shouldn't we make them? I mean, why give time off when you can use a mail-in ballot?
Because it's required by law.
Well, that's a rule. That's a reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Democracy.
Pam?
What an amount of work.
Yeah, it was.
I will
Go ahead, Bridget.
remark just one thing is that, yeah, it's a bit of a slog to read it from beginning to end. Where it really shines is a reference document. It's like you don't read the dictionary, from beginning to end, but when you need the definition of a word, that's where you go to. And that's what this book is. This book is a reference document. And one of the examples that I used at the HR committee, which I was thinking about even before the meeting tonight, again, is a really great example, is how to treat hourly employees who travel for district business. Because, of course, you want to be fair to the employee, but you also want to be fair, to the district. If they're going out of state, for example, and they're on a plane, well, are you compensating them, for every hour that they're sitting on a plane? Well, no, you're not, and that's in accordance with the FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act. But that not only does the payroll department need to know that, and the administration need to know that, but the employees themselves need to know that, and that should be documented somewhere, so that when an employee does travel on district business, who's an hourly employee, that they understand and know how they're going to be compensated, and that compensation occurs consistently, fairly, and transparently with each and every employee each and every time that employee has that kind of travel. So I find that this document really helps the organization with a unified place for all of those types of scenarios where, they don't come up all together that often, but when they do, you want to make sure that they're administered in the same way each and every time.
Yeah, that's a great example, of one of the comments we received. I think it might have even been on that, or it was a common comment from folks. Is like, well, you don't need to put it in there because it's already a law. So why are you, putting it in the personnel policy book? And the answer is exactly. We need to have current law captured there because this is the reference manual we're all using. So rather than try to chase down those laws wherever they're located, which, you can on the internet and all that, but why not have it in one consolidated place so we really have the dictionary of personnel policies that is more convenient and consistent. So I appreciate the example.
Pam, do you have anything to ask or comments?
I think organization or creating organization like that makes everybody sane on who's supposed to do what, and then There's equity you have to be certain of, everybody's on the same page. There's safety issues too that come up, and there's also legal issues. So I'm really happy to see you've done all that work. So I appreciate it.
Okay, good. I'll just comment, I'll agree with what everybody else has said, Felicia and Steve. This is a huge document. It is a living document. It needs to be a living document. It needs to be in compliance with the law. It needs to spell out our policies clearly and unambiguously, which it does. It was fun reading. I didn't read every single line, but I did get in and I read a lot of the changes, and it's, again, for anybody who is concerned about this, most of the changes benefit the employee. Every time our state assembly and state senators get together, they take money from organizations and give it to people, and so I don't see why they would have any complaint with this. I hope that's how they feel. It's certainly, some of it was clarifying on, for example, people on unpaid leave, not accruing vacation time and sick time and all of that. But we don't have a lot of that. So, and that makes sense too. So if we have no other comments or questions, I'd move to see if we have a motion.
I move that we adopt the Ross Valley Sanitary District Administrative and Personnel Policy Book.
I will second that.
Thank you very much. Julia, can we have a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Meigs,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to number 14, consideration of accepting the year-end metrics report for fiscal year 2021, and ask Steve to give us a staff report.
Thank you, Director Kelly and board members. Pleased to present this year's year-end metrics report. It's the end of the fiscal year, so the term of the data that are being analyzed in this report are from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. That's the time period that's captured in this report. But we also place the data in the context of the previous anywhere from 3 to 6 years where we've been collecting similar metrics and data. So I hope you've had a chance to look at it a little and have some specific questions and comments about the metrics and the data. As I point out in the staff report, I think when it comes to these key performance indicators that we talk about, it's helpful to think, is the metric we're looking at a measure of an output or an outcome? And so I really do structure things in that way. Are we measuring something that is an output in terms of number of miles cleaned, and a target that we set for our workforce to meet each year that's reasonable but keeps us moving forward? An output would be, the length of pipe cleaned, number of manholes repaired. Those are good things to track. Again, they're an indication of our productivity and our commitment to the mission in that regard. But there's something about outcome metrics that's a little more satisfying, because that's where we're actually measuring the environment, or maybe the number of SSOs, or the number of blockages we're coming across, or maybe how about the number of pipe defects in our system? That should be coming down. That's an outcome of our investment and effort. So I like to distinguish those two things in metrics as we go through. And I would just say generally, the outcome, the output metrics continue to look good. But is interesting this year, and you probably picked up on it, is that because this last winter was so dry, it kind of had an impact on our calculations, and I had to spend some effort trying to tease apart why we would see an increase in one of our outcome metrics, which was percent of rainfall that gets in our system. It's like, how did that increase? And then so on page, and so we start our metrics report with the story about flow. which is an outcome we want, right? That, you know, one of our outcomes that we want to see is lower flow going to the treatment plant. And then an outcome of that for us is less treatment plant fees, you know, and there's a financial benefit to the district, right? But yeah, the flow data are really interesting this year, because if you look on page 9 of the report, which is packet page 201, that is a striking pattern this year. So it gives you some empathy for sister agency, Marin Municipal Water District, because this is an uncommon rainfall and flow pattern that you see in any of the years we've been tracking things closely. It really was an outlier. But then, you know, if you go the figure before that, that's figure 2. If you go to the page before on board packet page 200, you see that the flows to CMSA hit a low point there at the end of June, and we talked about that before, in terms of the percent of the influent to CMSA. So that's an outcome we do want to see, that when we make all of our investments in capital and repair, we want to see that. So, and then moving on through this, there's verbiage here on pages 202 and 203 of the packet to try to explain these tables 1 and 2. But very interesting, you know, table 1, and bear with me, I'm getting some of the details here, but table 1, if you look at the wet weather peaking factor, which is the bold number at the bottom of the table, and this is 6 years of data, you know, in the narrative we talk about, gee, we'd love to be a brand new collection system and get 3 to 5 peaking factor, you know, meaning that our flow rate increases 3 to 5 times when it's raining, because there's inevitable infiltration into a non-watertight system. But a newer system would be 3 to 5 time peaking factor, where the wet weather is 3 to 5 times higher than the dry weather. And in Ross Valley, because we have little pipes with lots of joints and roots coming in, and up in the hillside and in Kentfield, you know, highest rainfall in the Bay Area, all blah blah, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We see a peaking factor of about 15 to 20. But last year we saw it went down to 10, and then this year it went down to 5. But that is definitely not thanks to all of our wonderful efforts. I know they help with that outcome, but really the 5 to 1 peaking factor is because we didn't have any rain.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations, board. You've achieved a 5 to 1 peaking factor, but I think there's an asterisk on this, you know, and and that's really what then this has impacted our metrics too when we say percent of rainfall in the system, because as I explained in the narrative, the overall rain volume was so low that what we do measure as wet weather flow is like a higher percentage of that really low rain volume, right? So it kind of tweaks the metrics, it tweaks our indexes, and almost want to call this an outlier year. But at the same time, it's still, you know, it's still only in that 7 to 10% range of rain getting into our system. So it's not too crazy, but anyway, we want to keep watching that type of outcome metric, because there's a lot of uncertainty in that calculation, right? But I hope you're getting a sense of our system, you know, with the rainfall when it doesn't happen, you know, that groundwater level declines and it gets below our pipes, right? And so it's going to tweak things a little bit. Anyway, that's one of those outcomes. Another thing real quickly, figure 12 on page 209 is one of my favorite metrics. It's figure 12, potential SSOs prevented. What we're seeing, thanks to the last 5 years, we're just documenting in our line maintenance less of these soft blockages, which can be grease or debris, wipes, roots, and that's a steady declining metric, meaning that we're heading things off that are potential problems. We put in a new metric about recycled water on page 210, and it's just kind of nice because when we really turned up the performance on our recycled water use in May and June, it's really showed up on this graphic on figure 13, where We were sitting around 30% recycled water, and we bumped it up to 45% by year's end. And now, as Felicia mentioned earlier, we're at 95 to 100% recycled water, depending on what's going on. So that's going to change in next year's report. But we were already showing that increasing metric. Our SSOs are not really worse, but they flattened out this year. Let's see what figure. Oh yes, page 217, figure 19. One of our most important outcome metrics, and so we had a steady decline per year. We flattened out 13 to 14. We really want to try to achieve 10 this year, try to keep the downward trend. We've got 5 so far. You know, we're gonna do our best not to have any more spills by the end of December. You know, then we'll be on pace for a goal of trying to get to 10 this year. So there's a lot of things that are out of our control, but we're trying to really be focused and targeted to keep a downward trend going. And then another one of my outcome metrics I like to focus on, and I'll maybe I might conclude with this and then encourage I want to hear input from what you're seeing, is page 223 of the board packet, which is figures 27 and 28. These are 2 ways of looking at the number of defects in our system based on our condition assessment work. And thanks to our efforts to fix these major defects, grade 5 defects are the ones like the big hole in the pipe or the big separation at the joint, big crack in the pipe that really create infiltration. You'll see that going back 5 years, let's take the figure on the right, just the number of defects has declined precipitously from 2,229 down to 769. So, and then pipes with the defect gone down from almost 1,000 to 400 pipes. You know, it takes time and money to address these things, but this shows, you know, the regulators, the ratepayers, the interested public, the watchdogs, that we have measurable outcomes of all of our investment and commitment. Implementing a data-driven collection system management approach. So that's some of the highlights on outcome that I always like to talk about, but certainly there's outputs to be proud of. Very interesting story, you know, about the laterals and lateral grants that you can look at on pages 230. And so, yeah, with that, let me hand it back over. Thanks for letting me dig into the data a little bit with you all.
That's good. Thank you very much. Tom? Questions, comments?
You know, yeah, I mean, I love this, and I went through it in detail, but I had a question on page, you know, actually the heavy ones are easy to read, 12 of 45, pump station things. Why did pump station work orders and why did the hours of maintenance increase the pump station? In other words, we're maintaining them more, is that it? Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question. You know, I don't have off the top of my head an easy answer to that. You know, we may, you know, this past year, for instance, we had a 3-person crew the whole time. It had a little bit to do with COVID. In the past, we would have 2 people in the summer and 3 people in the winter. So I don't know if that had an impact. But
it's going up every year though, you know, it's uphill.
Yeah, it keeps going up, and it could be an artifact of putting more work orders in the system. The work may have already been being done, but the pump station crew, for instance, I've learned that, you know, we haven't put all the asset information in our CMMS that we really should do, and that's part of what we're catching up on in the coming year. It's, you know, it's not the business plan. It's one of my business plan priorities is to get the CMMS for pump stations up. So I think that might be playing a little bit of a role, that it hasn't been that precipitously increasing, but that's a very good observation. I'm gonna take a closer look at that.
Okay. Michael?
Sure, I'd just like to say, compared to where we were 7 years ago and where we're every year we add more things and more data to this report, and it's really quite incredible. And you know, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but if I could give an attaboy to Philip for getting this together every month and giving us this information. Patrick, rather. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But this is an incredible piece of data that's given to us, and I've heard from other districts that they see this, and nobody gets this kind of data like we get.
You're going to send this to the regional board, aren't you, for a cease and desist committee?
I have done that, you know, and actually received, I could show you some emails we got back from them. You know, they're very impressed with it. And we're undergoing an audit right now under the SSMP. It's a self-audit. So we're learning a lot through this process. We're having more of a deep audit experience. Paul Kazi, who was interim general manager here in 2007, but, you know, long-term serving as a Central Contra Costa Sanitary District board member and consultant to dozens of sanitary districts. He's very impressed with the metrics report. He says it is the best that he's seen. So yeah, the water board's generally favorable response too. And you know, to your point, Director Gavney, I think they benefit from seeing this because I think the water boards struggle with coming up with a way to evaluate collection systems because collection systems don't have effluent discharge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they can rate treatment plants based on the quality of their effluent. The quality of the collection system management is elusive to the regulatory agencies. And so this kind of specificity gives folks a sense of, okay, what can they track? All right, what is a meaningful way to evaluate the performance?
I think it's excellent.
Pam.
So I have to say, I know communities in the East Bay that are paying the same rate that we're all paying, and they would never get this quality report, and they don't even have a grant program. That, you know, and I have to say, toot your horn. You know, this is excellent, and I know about specifics being a nurse. You know, it'll make you and break you, and this is just quite a nice roadmap. So thank you.
Thank you, Director May.
Mary?
Yeah, I just want to say great also. I hope NV5 gets to flip through this and pull some stuff and do some promotion of your good work and our good work. And, you know, I mean, the regional Water Quality Board got after us because somebody came up with a plan about what we should do based on nothing really. And when Greg came in, he was charged with arguing to them, well, that was a stupid plan, and that's why we shouldn't do it. And, you know, we're just in a much better position. You put us in a much better position. Greg put us in a better position than we were to start with. You can't plan what to do if you don't have good data about what's going on. So this puts us in a great position. Steve said one of his favorite charts was figures. One of my favorites is on 27 to 45, where it shows that our footage of CCTV inspection is higher than it's ever been, and our hours doing it are almost as low as it's ever been. So as a kind of like a process efficiency person, that makes me really happy. I know we spent a lot of money on equipment to do that, but it's certainly paying off in terms of what we're getting done.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't help but like, you know, living in bars and everything, but one bar going up while the other goes down in this year. So congrats.
I will pass along that observation to the CCTV crew.
One of the things I noted, I'm sorry, Pam, did you speak? I don't think I asked you.
No, I didn't speak.
Please do.
No, I did.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
It's late. It's like,
I was reading things. I was looking through things. I'd like to just point out that you point out, Steve, that the electricity cost is outpacing our savings. And I know that a lot of electricity costs is the pumping stations and you know, it's not all going to be in the building. But again, I'd like to suggest we look at putting solar on 1111 Anderson, ANDERSEN, and maybe even in the parking lots, just to see if we can save some money there. You know, I don't think a solar panel on our pumping stations is going to save us a whole lot of money out there, but whatever we can do at this new property to save money, I think would be helpful. Maybe we can even sell. Maybe we can even sell power to Comcast for their offices downstairs.
Yeah, I think we should definitely be looking at that from a facility standpoint.
Okay. This is a great report, as everybody else said. It's really interesting. It's fun to read. There's a lot of things in there. I liked Mary's call on that CCTV. I also like, you know, just because I'm from San Anselmo, to continue to see that San Anselmo gets the bulk of the lateral grant money. You know, I think it's advertised better by their town managers. I think you might want to reach out to town managers of the other towns again and just remind them, you know, that it's there. It's available for their residents. You don't need to tell Ross. They got plenty of money. So that's, you know, skip them. Great report.
You have a new town manager. So I think that's a high priority.
You know?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the year-end metrics report for fiscal year 2020/21.
I second.
Julia. We have a roll.
Thank you. Yes. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Thanks.
yes.
Zilla,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That moves us on to number 15, consideration of an amendment to the general manager's contract. This is a no staff report. So let me start by saying, Steve, you got very, very high marks. You're very, very well respected. We admire you. There's so much you've done in the past year, including getting this close to a full EPA release of Larkspur Landing for full and complete open use, getting this close, and we'll get there, to ending the Regional Water Board's cease and desist, getting us this close, I'm having some fun with you now, to getting us into 1111 Anderson Drive. But that project and all three of those I just mentioned have been really, really well run from the beginning. You know, it's a process. Dealing with the federal government's always hard. I know you recently had to send them a 1.8 gig PDF, if I remember that correctly, because it all had to be in one document. Just this kind of mind-numbing stuff that goes into some of this is just hard. I know the working with Comcast on 1111 has been great for us. You know, the ratepayers should be extremely grateful for the way that's been going. You know, every time I see an email from you, I think it says ka-ching somewhere in it, but at any rate, it's been well run. You know, I know the project will be going well there. We're really close to cease and desist, and I think we have one project left on that, if I remember. The financials, and I know Felicia had to leave the meeting a little bit earlier. She's also very responsible for a lot of these things, but the financials are in great shape. We're continuing to increase our credit rating. we're in good shape. The organization is in good shape, and I really liked when we had our Monday meeting, the discussion of the Ross Valley Way, the 25 things to think about as you're going about your work. So you got great reviews, and if Michael or Tom, who were on that subcommittee, if you'd like to pipe in, please do so now.
Oh, I think you, whoop, hang on. Yeah, no, I think you really summed it up very well there, Doug. We, at the end of every year, we do a written review of the general manager, and that's been going on since day one of, I can't say day one of the district, but as long as I've been on the district. And that's when we consider redoing his contract for the next coming year or years. So that's what we've done. And just bravo. Thank you so much for the work that you do in directing your staff. It's really quite incredible. Tom, I don't know if you have anything to say, but if not, I'd like to just go through what we can do in open session. Discuss here.
Before you do that, Michael, hold on. Before you do that, if anybody else wants to speak to this,
sure, absolutely.
Mary,
I'd like
Mary,
to
okay, Tom was. I'm sorry.
we did the score sheet, Steve, and I think you got the highest score all time in the 7 years that we've been doing this for this year. We really, I was reviewing with us in the closed session some of the things that you're approaching. For example, your positive performance idea with the staff. We're beginning, I hope that we're not taking for granted the great work in sewer repairs that we're noticing with reduced flows to central Marin. But also, like our Paul Causey, who I know personally, was saying that the SOPs are the most complete, that he's our competency-based training program is first class. So things like that make, and then the handbook that Felicia, by the way, Felicia was mentioned in your review because that's what a manager does. He uses his staff, and we appreciate her work too. So great job this year, and high expectations for next year too.
Mm-hmm. Mary.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what other folks have said, Steve. You're doing a phenomenal job, and we've never had on our score sheets as consistently high numbers. So, really, really amazing work, and we see it, and we and the ratepayers benefit from it. So thank you. It's clear that you not only commit your whole brain, but your whole heart to this job, coming up with things like, employee motivation tools that we wouldn't even be aware of. So congratulations. Thank you. We hope you're happy, and we hope we get to keep you. and let us know if what we can do to make that true for the foreseeable future, I would say.
I'm happy.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
I have to say it's been a productive year. And Steve, you have led the troops and created, I just was looking at some of your achievements and I thought, my God, how can you juggle all that? It's quite something. And so you really got the EPA moving on the LLP, and then you got the IAMP, in its place, and then you got the CDO rolling, and COVID. And you and I had a couple of calls about COVID. That was a nightmare. And you really took the ball and you really took care of those guys. So I really applaud you for that, because it was really scary for, you know, not only being a manager, but the guys and the whole community really didn't know what we were dealing with. So I appreciate you, and I know we've had a little rocky stuff, but I'm really happy to see you staying, and I'm just wishing you the best. And if I can help, let me know.
Thank you.
You know,
Michael,
I think it's an indication that we're able to do some of the projects like what you're doing with the staff currently, and doing that work on Shady Lane and those kinds of things, are an indication that we really are running smoothly and that we have the time to do these kinds of things now. And we're not in a crisis mode, and we can stop and say, okay, and now how can we not only make the pipes better, but how can we make the district a better place to be? And so anyway, very happy. Would now be appropriate time to go through, okay, I'm getting a nod from Doug. So one of the things is every single one of our employees, top to bottom, gets a COLA, cost of living adjustment, that is defined by the Bay Area people. So it's the same all around. And this year it was a little bit higher than last year, but cost of living went up more this year than previous years. So there's a 4.3 cost of living adjustment. All of the employees get that. And also we have the honor of being able to give you a performance bonus, which, you know, me, Mr. Left-wing liberal guy, I'd make it more, but we really have a limit of 5% of the previous year's salary. And so it's a one-time bonus of $13,524.30. The new total salary is $282,116.88 a year. Don't spend it all in one place. And ever since I've been here, we've always given the general manager a car allowance, and that has not increased. So that's staying the same at $500 a month. And extend your current employment contract for one additional year. Right now it finishes in 22, December 31st of 22. So this would extend it out to the December 31st of 2023. And just because Tom and I like even numbers, we talked about making it commence on November the 1st. It was on November the 13th. So just this way it starts on the 1st, 31st. And if anybody would like to discuss that, you all have it in front of you. Otherwise, we could, if it's appropriate, approve it.
Steve, do you have any comments on that?
Oh, thank you, board members. It really means a great deal that each of you individually has confidence in what I'm committed to doing at your service, or at service to you, at your pleasure. And so it's profound to me that you have that confidence. I appreciate you giving me the benefit of the doubt. You know that this hasn't happened just for me. This is a group of great people here that I try to motivate to get great things done. But if it weren't for that, these things would not happen. And so thanks so much. It means the world to me. And this job is meaningful. In the context of the water resources, collection system management is underestimated how much it really contributes to quality of life. And there is an opportunity, and you all understand this, that to innovate and to make things better at this level, we really that can reverberate to collection system management beyond our boundaries. And it's an important part of the mission of sustainable water resource management. So I think it's meaningful. It's a great group of people to work with here. And we can do cool things. You know, we can take those old sewers out of the creeks and improve fish passage habitat. We just did it last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. And it's going to be exciting to see that creek flow in that area this winter, because apparently it does rain. So and that's just one little thing that we can all take enjoyment in. And, you know, this is fulfilling work. It's tangible changes that I'm seeing on video, right? You know, the pipeline videos that we see. These changes are real and very satisfying to be a part of. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to work in this capacity and for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. You all may have noticed, even though it was plugged in, I guess my charger's messed up. I'm out of batteries. So I'm called in. So do I have a motion?
I move we approve the general manager's contract as indicated in the subcommittee's report. Is that part of our agenda packet? So that makes sense, Andrea?
I don't think it was. I think you're gonna have to spell
It's
that
not
out.
part of,
So,
yeah, it's not part of your agenda packet. I think Michael spelled it out fairly well. And I think Julia probably wrote that down. I did too. And I also have the background document. So it's a 4.3% COLA. It's the 5% bonus, which I heard was 13,524.30. And keeping the car allowance the same and extension for 1 year so that the contract ends December 31, 2023. And these changes commence November 1.
is that your motion, Mary?
It sounded so much, yes, it is my motion. Thank you, Andrew.
Wait a second.
Thank you very much. Julia, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, of course, President Kelly. Thank you. Borstein,
With great pride, yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Eggs,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes. And
Thank you.
thank you. That passes unanimously. And thank you, Steve, very much.
Doug, if I could make
Number-
if I could make just one more comment. Just
Sure.
okay. When we were doing the taking out of the old sewer pipe at on Shady Lane, I drove by and was speaking to the construction manager there, who lives in Fairfax, and so he's a local boy, and he just went on and on and on that working with Steve was unlike working with anybody else, seriously, that he'd worked with, in the way he took interest in this. And also, he said that his job is going out and talking to all the people in the neighborhood, letting them know what they're doing, but that Steve walked around with him and he talked to everybody personally, and that he said he did a much better job than he could have done. And what he did with the community, he said, I'm just in awe of what he did. So that's what we're working with here. And make sure you can get your head outside the door when you go out.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Lastly, the informational items, the monthly operations and maintenance metrics report. Steve. No SSOs.
Yeah, you know, we can do that. We actually went with a month without having an SSO. And I don't have a whole lot of complete high points other than, you know, we mentioned the recycled water use. It continues to go up. Thanks to some great efforts by our guys, you know, really being creative and using what we have to really minimize potable use in this drought. So, but happy to answer any questions. We already kind of did a deep dive in metrics already, so I don't need to revisit.
Well, I'd point out that 46 local pipeliner replacements this month is really quite remarkable.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, and it is true, and I appreciate you all did bring attention to that excellent crew. They really are making a difference out there, you know, in terms of just the cost effectiveness of reducing I&I through those through that system that Manny Vigil really has perfected in his group. It's great to have him, and he's quick to respond when we find things in the field. You know, it might not be an SSO. It just may be, you know, a situation where a root's grown into a pipe. They call him, he's out there within a week, and, you know, so it's like a 2 birds with 1 stone situation. He's ready to respond, and is a great asset for the district.
Excellent. Okay. Well, with that, unless we have any other comments, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. The next meeting, the regular board meeting on November 17th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via GoToMeeting. Thank you all very much. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Doug.
Good
Thanks,
night.
board member. Good night.
Good night.